If war were to break out between the US and China, Taiwan is a likely flashpoint. Imagine a revanchist Chinese military amassing near Taiwan, the White House warning against an invasion. All it would take is one misunderstanding. Though the US does not officially recognize Taiwan's government, it does remain its strongest backer, while China views the island as lost territory which it must take back. Some argue that the scale of China's military in the region has already surpassed anything the US or Taiwan militaries could stop. Others say American credibility is on the line, and the US could indeed defend Taiwan if pushed. So, in the context of these mounting tensions, here is our question. Is Taiwan indefensible? Lyle, the screen is yours.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. Let me begin by saying that these are my own opinions that don't in any way reflect any official assessments of the U.S. government. I've been studying Chinese military modernization for now more than 2 decades, and looking at it at a very granular level. I watch Chinese military TV, Jun Shi Bao Dao, basically every day. I read Jiefan Junbao, Guofang Bao. These are the most prominent military newspapers. I look at satellite photos very frequently of Hulu Dao, of Yalong Wan. These are the major submarine fabrication, submarine building areas in China. And I can tell you that by focusing on Taiwan as a major point of our strategy, we're not only putting aside issues that we should work on with China, like global warming, non-proliferation, the pandemic. We're not only engaging in a major arms race with China, but there is a real risk of catastrophic war, even nuclear war. Look at the cover of The Economist, if you didn't see it, saying Taiwan is the most dangerous place in the world. I emphatically agree. Why? You don't have to have a PhD in strategy, folks. Just look at a map. The geography tells you what you need to know. Taiwan is 100 miles off Chinese shores. It's 5,000 miles from Hawaii, not the mainland U.S., Hawaii. Okay, a Chinese attack would be shock and awe with Chinese characteristics, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, rocket artillery, drones, and probably thousands of aircraft. There would be decapitation, destruction of Taiwan's Air Force and Navy in their bases, targeting of U.S. bases in Guam and Okinawa, ASBIM, anti-ship ballistic missiles, submarines, bombers would all be used to keep U.S. surface forces back. The submarine force is there, but there are major problems with that. It's certainly no silver bullet. And Taiwan forces are rather pathetic, to be honest. Their spending is below 2%. They're in a manpower crisis, and they have an awful record of accidents just over the last year. Very sad, but true. Look, there's some critical history you need to understand. China was incorporated into China in 1683. Folks, that's almost 100 years before the American Revolution. Okay, and by the way, the Kangxi Emperor, he wasn't so sure they should do this, but they did. Okay, then it was 200 years later, was stolen away by Japan. Now, we all know that Hong Kong is a major lightning rod for Chinese nationalism because it was taken from China in the Opium War. Well, Taiwan, in the same way, was taken away by Japan. So all the atrocities and the aggression that Japan perpetrated against China comes together in the Taiwan issue. And that's why it's a major focal point of Chinese nationalism and why China is fully ready to go to the mat on this. And this is a major problem. So the bottom line is that China has both the will and the requisite capabilities to conquer Taiwan, even in the near term. It could happen tomorrow. We, by contrast, don't have the will and don't have the capabilities. Let's face it, 90% of Americans couldn't find Taiwan on a map. And there's little prospect of these factors changing. So I think we should be smart, think strategically, and realize that this is simply beyond the reach of our power. And that if we're to draw red lines, we should draw them elsewhere in the Pacific, not over Taiwan.
How do you make the case to the American body politic that they should be sending their sons to defend Taiwan because that's part of defensibility as well as having the political will?
Sure. Okay. So, first about the invasion and the success calculus, a lot has to go right. A lot has to go right for the invasion to be successful. as Lyle mentioned, the various components. It's not like Taiwan doesn't have any defensive capabilities, right? I mean, it does have defensive capabilities. The beaches are armed. The air is armed. It does have early warnings. It has spies in China. So it's not like this would be, ooh, here they come. It's a big surprise, right? Generally, the mobilization will be detected in advance because of its very good, excellent intelligence gathering and its spy apparatus. And so Taiwan would not be completely off guard, and then of course it would share that intelligence with the United States. That would bring the United States into play. What the United States needs to do is raise the cost to China so high that China thinks twice about unifying Taiwan with China by force. It has always been U.S. policy that the United States seeks a peaceful resolution of the Taiwan Strait issue to be decided by both sides of the Taiwan Strait. And so Beijing, if it had its preference, would like a peaceful resolution as well. It doesn't want to lose, how many thousands, more than thousands of its, sole male children in taking over Taiwan for its territorial integrity. Defending Taiwan is vital to U.S. credibility and standing in the region and worldwide. U.S. defense of Taiwan is an important indicator of U.S. commitment to our alliances, not just in the Asia-Pacific, but worldwide. Not just will China be watching if we break this commitment, but so will the rest of the world. What will United States commitment and its word be worth if we break it, if we are intimidated by China? The United States, since the end of World War II, has been the bulwark of peace and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific. And if we cut and run because we're intimidated by China, then our standing in the region and worldwide will be diminished. The U.S. is an important player in the Asia-Pacific. We have friends and allies there, and we have defense agreements. Let's not abandon Taiwan to just go down in flames as well. If we do, the U.S. will never recover. We have ebbed and flowed over the years in our foreign policy. We will just be ebbing if we give up on Taiwan. China will rise in Asia, and we will never recover our status. We will never recover our status with our allies, and around the world, we will be seen as a party that just cut and run when we were put up against a tough situation. So not only would we be letting down 24 million people on the island of Taiwan, but billions of others around the world.
The Palace Museum in Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan, has 700,000 Chinese objects, Chinese artifacts. It's the biggest such repository in the world, bigger than Beijing, bigger than Shanghai, bigger than Xi'an, or any place else in China. Among sinologists, people who study China like me, it's well known that the best Chinese food is probably found in Taiwan. Look, folks, this is a civil war. The Chinese Civil War continues. This is a family quarrel. But the United States has learned something about civil wars, right? Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. We know better. We know to avoid civil wars like the plague. Of course, this war, were it to happen, would be orders of magnitude worse than any of those wars I mentioned, including Vietnam. It's true that China could develop in a dangerous way in the future, although it's unlikely. But it is possible. I don't rule it out. So we may have to draw red lines. But those red lines should be drawn over the main islands of our treaty partners, Japan and Philippines, not over Taiwan. Let me tell you a story of when I was a graduate student. I used to give battlefield tours at Gettysburg, an extraordinary place. If you know the history, a certain cavalry general, John Buford, he arrived at the battlefield, Union cavalry. He arrived at the battlefield on June 30th, the day before the battle, and he surveyed the ground. And he knew right away. He looked at the hills and said, this is good ground. You know, gosh darn it, Bobby Lee has beat us up in so many battles, but here we can make a stand. This is good ground. The geography favors us. Well, I want to tell you folks, he saved our country with that appreciation, but this is the opposite. This is bad ground. This is the worst possible place to confront China. We may have to fight China. I dearly hope not. But this is the worst possible place to try to fight China. They are likely to win, and we are likely to lose. And many Chinese, Taiwanese, and Americans would die in such a war. So we should avoid it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lyle Goldstein. And our final statement, again, closing argument will be coming against the resolution that Taiwan is indefensible. Here is Elbridge Colby.
Great, thanks, John. As I hope we've demonstrated, this resolution is wrong. The United States and Taiwan, with enough focus and resolve, can together defend the island. Without question, doing so would be hard, costly, and risky, but it would be worth it. For Americans, the basic reason why is this: China would not stop after swallowing Taiwan. Instead, Beijing would keep going, pressing forward to try to become master of Asia, and from that position, the world's dominant power. And a Beijing that had subordinated Taiwan would be in a stronger position to do so. Washington's credibility in Asia, and thus its ability to muster a coalition to stop China's domineering ambitions, would be gravely damaged by failing to effectively defend Taiwan. And China would now dominate Taiwan's critical geography and one of the world's most dynamic advanced economies. But don't take it from me that China's ambitions won't be sated by Taiwan. Take it from the Indian soldiers the PLA killed in Ladakh. Take it from the Vietnamese and Philippine sailors bullied in the South China Sea. Take it from the citizens of Hong Kong who've seen their treaty guaranteed rights trampled. Take it from Beijing's claim of a 9-dash line that would mean dominating the rich South China Sea and its littoral. Take it from Beijing's demands that America, the only state that could plausibly match China in power, exit its Asian alliances, thereby in effect ceding the region to Chinese domination. And take it from the military the Chinese are actually building, decidedly not one limited to seizing Taiwan, but one that looks much more meant to dominate Asia and project power far and wide. So we must be under no delusion. A China that dominates Asia, the world's largest market area, will mean grave harm to American self-interest, their livelihoods, freedoms, and security. Heck, they've already started showing us what it would look like. Look at how they demand Australia toe their line and change Australia's own laws to satisfy Beijing. Look how they bully marquee American companies. Look how they pushed around the Europeans just now when they piped up about what's happening in Xinjiang. Now imagine how China will behave when it's dominant. Because of this, we're better off meeting them now, not with the goal of war, but of a decent peace. But we won't get a decent peace if we won't stand firm. Better to stand now with Taiwan and our credibility strong than give up Taiwan and be weaker and discredited. For these reasons, Taiwan not only can be defended, it should be. Thank you very much, and I urge you to vote no on the resolution.
Thank you, Elbridge Colby, and that concludes round 3, and that concludes our